2022, but it's worth pointing out, when it comes to street circuit specialists, Sergio Perez is right up there. One, of course, in Singapore, one in Baku, last win, Monaco last season.
Indeed, and he pushed quite hard away from the line, did Sergio Perez. Second longest circuit on the calendar, and he really wanted to get round these. He spread the field out a lot because he wanted.
Meters from pole down to that first braking zone, and already you can see the brakes smoking away on Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, getting very, very hot, and there's still about a dozen cars waiting to slot into position. We can see Logan Sargent, who were the last on the grid.
Yeah, normally you'd want to just rock the car backwards and forwards if it's smoking like that, but of course you can't do that on the grid.
So on your left-hand side, Sergio Perez, the right-hand side of the grid, as we look from the first corner, or we look to the first corner, is Fernando Alonso, and the safety car, medical car in position. There is the green flag. 5 lights are on here in Jeddah. It's lights out and away we go. I think Alonso got a slightly better start. Perez is trying to come across and cut him off, but I don't think he's done that. Fernando Alonso into turn 1 in the lead from Sergio Perez. Then comes George Russell. Carlos Sainz has under pressure now from Lance Stroll. And then comes Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Perfect start from Fernando Alonso. And somebody has lost a bit of bodywork at the back, and I think it's one of the McLarens, which could well be Oscar Piastri, but we'll check on that as Alex Albon goes off the track. Dream start for Fernando Alonso as they now skirt through Charles Leclerc in the midfield. Max Verstappen trying to make up places. Lance Stroll is right on the back of Carlos Sainz, but it's his teammate Fernando Alonso that has started well, as round the outside of turn 13 goes Lance Stroll and past Carlos Sainz.
And Alonso's been noted for incorrect starting position, unfortunately. That happened to Esteban Ocon 2 weekends ago, of course, and he took a penalty for it. So was Alonso outside of his allotted start box, but whatever it was, with the extra rare temperature he was getting in his tyres, he took off beautifully.
He absolutely did. I've got damage, says Oscar Piastri. We saw a bit of carbon fibre flying through the air, and he's reporting on the radio that he might be in a little bit of trouble. Ocon then got penalties last week, 3 of them in total. 5-second penalty. The first one was for an incorrect starting procedure, as Martin said. But as we come now to the final corner, it's Alonso out in front from Sergio Perez, and there down the inside goes Oscar Piastri on the Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu. There's a lot of jostling for position as they head down the main straight, and there Perez and Alonso. Perez making the move. Alonso stays ahead.
No DRS for 2 laps, of course. They don't open up the rear wings, that it's not available to them. But both Aston Martins flying along nicely at the beginning of this Grand Prix.
Alonso from Perez, Russell, Stroll and Sainz, the top 5. Karim Chandok, let's head down to you.
Yeah, front right end plate Crofty, front right wing. They're damaged. Oscar Piastri. It's taken quite a long time for them to get a change and send him back on his way, but not at all what he wanted after that superb qualifying.
And he only lasted 13 laps of his debut, of course, in Bahrain. The FIA stewards have given a 5-second time penalty for Fernando Alonso for an incorrect starting location. Is it more difficult, I wonder, for drivers to slot into their grid position, because that's the second time it's happened this season? They'll take that penalty when he comes in for his first pit stop. At the moment, he's 8/10 ahead of Sergio Perez, who's got faster speed down the straights.
Yeah, so we'll have a look at that. Was he left or right, or was he too far forward? We didn't see anything initially, but what a shame then for Fernando Alonso. That's going to be a lot of pain when he has to take that penalty. Remember what happened to Ocon when he took his penalty. He needed a wing as well. He got a penalty while serving a penalty, and then another penalty for speeding in the pit lane on his way to serve that penalty. So hopefully that won't happen this weekend.
Charles Leclerc has the most positions gained on the opening lap. 3 of them up and up into 9th. Magnussen is up into 11th. He's gained places as well, as has Zhou Guanyu, who's gained 1 place. Fernando Alonso leading a Grand Prix for the first time on an opening lap since Germany 2012, which was the last time he was on pole position.
And Alonso's been told about the penalty and has just simply gone copy. So he's remarkably calm about it. I don't know if there were any other words that came along just before or just after, but Lando Norris in the pits as well, I'm hearing.
Karun Chandok, down to you.
Unbelievably, another front wing, guys. There goes Lando Norris away from me. I'm standing right next to it.
Okay, Fernando, so we have got a 5-second penalty at the pit stop for grid position at the start, so we'll bear that in mind. 5-second penalty at the first pit stop.
Yeah, as you were saying, just matter of fact there for Fernando. What a nightmare for McLaren. 2 races in a row, both cars out of position with issues.
Oh dear, oh dear. 2 McLarens running 19th and 20th. They've gone onto the hard compound tyre to go as long as they possibly can. Verstappen, meanwhile, we're watching him there, has made up 2 places ahead now of Yuki Tsunoda and Valtteri Bottas.
Now we know that the DRS rear wing on the Red Bull is particularly effective, and now he's got access to it. DRS is enabled as we're now on lap 3. But we'll see that coming into play. I really expected Max to have made another place or 2 up in those early stages, but nobody tripped over anybody else really too much. But now is his chance.
You can see how powerful that DRS is. Fernando Alonso now just 4/10 ahead of Sergio Perez. Look, here comes Perez. Perez is going for the lead of this race. Into turn 1 he does, locks up, just about hangs on to the track limits, and Sergio Perez takes the lead on lap 4 of this Saudi Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's important this for Perez needs to be getting on, but he knows that Max Verstappen will turn up later in this Grand Prix somewhere, especially if there's some kind of virtual safety car, or particularly the full safety car, of course. And very powerful. Now let's have a look.
Now just
You're too far left,
to the left,
Fernando.
yeah.
You're too far left, yeah.
You
He's
said he was doing aggressive burnouts, Martin.
He was, but he's too... they've really tightened up on this, haven't they? But Sebastian Vettel did have a problem with this 2 or 3 seasons back as well. But they've nailed him for being too far left in his pit box, not too far forward, or rolling or jumping the start, for example.
And we see the start here. That's where the contact happened of Oscar Piastri and the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. And you can see the carbon fibre coming off that front wing end plate. And that's what got Piastri into a bit of trouble.
Yeah, it didn't seem too much of a contact, did it? It was very unlucky, but that's a key part of the front wing. So he got out of it sensibly there. Oscar wasn't trying to be clever, keeping his nose clean. Now he's going to be pinned up against the wall a little bit. And there it was. Yeah. He was almost, perhaps a little too cautious there. He was really minding his car going down to the first corner, being sensible. And unfortunately then got pinched by the Alpine.
Here's Charles Leclerc, made up 3 places on the opening lap. When the lights go out, Charles Leclerc is in full aggressive mode on those soft compound tyres. We'll go back to him in a moment. This is how Sergio Perez took the lead, and already he's more than half a second clear of Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, and Fernando was harvesting the red lights flashing there. They're not brake lights, they're harvesting, filling up his battery. He knows he's not in a fight with that Red Bull. No point in wasting tyres or time or heartbeats fighting that car.
He'll be hoping, though, that Sergio, with that lock-up, will have just taken a bit of juice out of those tyres. So, Max Verstappen now up into 11th place. He's gained 4 places so far. The 2 McLarens still right at the back. Nico Hülkenberg had a bad start, dropping out of the top 10. Charles Leclerc still up behind Pierre Gasly, and hoping that DRS can help his Ferrari, there he is, to get past the Alpine.
And of course, there are no brake lights on these cars, so those lights flash to tell the driver in front that the car, or sorry, the driver behind, that the car in front is starting to harvest, starting to fill its battery up. So even though the driver remains on full throttle, it will slow down a little bit as he's kicking the dynamo in. Remember that on your bicycle? So so you have to warn the driver that even towards the end of a straight, it will start to slow down, even though it's on full throttle.
I remember it well, never pedalled fast enough to get any decent light out of the thing, to be fair. DRS for Fernando Alonso, helping him keep in touch there with Sergio Perez. DRS for Carlos Sainz, keeping him in touch with Lance Stroll. Lewis Hamilton trying to break the toe a bit. He has got Pierre Gasly right behind him, and Charles Leclerc is now right on that scene, hoping to get past a couple of cars as soon as he possibly can.
And don't forget, Lewis is on the hard compound tyre, so he'll be struggling for mechanical grip in these early phases, but it's not going too badly for him. But as many promised us, it does look like a very close fight between Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari.
Alonso's key here is to try and keep in touch with Perez and get as much of a gap as outbraking himself there, Max Verstappen, at turn 23 on the fifth lap of this race. Yeah, Alonso trying to keep within that DRS of Sergio Perez, helping his pace. Aston Martin haven't had as much pace down the straight and pulling away there from George Russell.
Indeed. Max Verstappen won't get a penalty for that, but if he does it 4 times, after the 3rd time he'll get a black and white driving standards flag, and another time he will then take a penalty.
What also might hamper Verstappen a little bit as he closes in on Zhou Guanyu is this battle going on here. 7th, 8th and 9th, Hamilton, Gasly and Leclerc. Gasly and Leclerc have DRS, and a bit of a DRS train is already forming where the DRS, because 2 cars have got it, rather negates itself and there's no big advantage. And Leclerc was worried about this going into the race, saying this might hamper my progress through the field a little bit as well. Progress though for Sergio Perez. We start lap 7, he's still in the lead. From Alonso, there's Russell, there's Stroll, and there's Carlos Sainz down in 5th place. And once again, Hamilton trying to break the toe. We're on board with Charles Leclerc. Has he managed to get past Pierre Gasly? It's very tight going into that first corner. The car ahead is the Mercedes. Can't see the Alpine. That means that Charles Leclerc has got past Pierre Gasly. Neat little move from the Monegasque driver.
In fact, yes, and I suspect now that Leclerc has been released, Lewis Hamilton might have more of a problem without the availability of the rear wing open in keeping the Ferrari behind him.
Let's have a look then from the helicopter shot of Charles Leclerc. Pace down that straight. Gasly tried to defend, put his car in the right position to do so. Gave Leclerc just enough space, didn't he?
And look how fast they were catching the Mercedes when they got their rear wings open. So Leclerc then ought to have, he's on the soft tyres, Hamilton on the hard compound tyre. Leclerc ought to be able to get past the Mercedes quite quickly when he gets onto its gearbox.
What's going to interest me, though, Martin, here we have Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre in 8th place. Logically, he's going to have to come into the pits earlier than others around him. If he pits first, does that then bring others into the pits a little bit too early? And does that then allow Verstappen a nice clear track in which to close in on the top 6?
Yeah. Verstappen then, that'll be his window, his clear track where he can get the hammer down and go for it.
Verstappen get the hammer down? Has Lewis Hamilton trademarked that one? Is it no Verstappen? Is that the message when he goes nice and fast? DRS once again for Charles Leclerc, which gives you a decent advantage down the straight. Here comes Max Verstappen on Zhou Guanyu. Nice easy move for him into turn 1. He's now up into the top 10. And that end of straight impact round about 14 kilometers an hour when you've got the DRS open.
So Hamilton's been noted for weaving. I was just about to talk about that, actually. I believe you're allowed to cross the track, but once, but they weren't really anywhere near him, unless they perceived that he was not just breaking the toe, but actually blocking another driver. But if a driver's behind you, you're allowed to move once, and then you have to keep that position. But I don't believe they were really... I think Lewis is more trying to break the toe than block.
Yeah.
But let's see what the stewards think.
I suppose when you take in that, 8.5 miles an hour advantage, when you have the DRS behind, the closing speed can be quite extreme.
But plan A, definitely plan A.
Yeah, I'm trying, mate. I'm trying.
Even though he's got that 5-second penalty to serve at his pit stop, plan A is still a one-stop strategy for Fernando Alonso, who's still within 1 second of Sergio Perez. He's driving a brilliant little race here to keep within that DRS range and to use that to help his pace as well.
Yeah, and of course he's got to gain at least 5 seconds on the challenging bunch as well to soak up that penalty. So it's a driving standards warning for Lewis Hamilton. Black and white flag for weaving on the straight, and now I fear he'll be able to do nothing about the Ferrari.
Nothing at all. In fact, to be fair to Lewis Hamilton there, he didn't even defend that against the Ferrari. I don't think at this stage of the race, Lewis Hamilton's fight is with Charles Leclerc, given that they're on the two extreme tyre compounds, and the Ferrari has got more straight line speed. Charles Leclerc, though, up into 7th now. Hamilton playing the long, patient game, and down in 8th, just letting time go by. See where he ends up at the end.
But I'm told Lewis is on the radio complaining about those tyres, those hard compound tyres,
Really?
and I haven't heard it myself, but are not particularly happy with them.
Already, Fernando Alonso has a decent gap of nearly 5 seconds over George Russell. Martin said his first priority here is to build as much time to Russell as he can, so that when he does pit and get that 5-second penalty, he doesn't lose quite so much in terms of any advantage he's built up by some impressive driving, and now it could get a bit trickier for him. Well, he was just outside the DRS range for one brief second as we watch the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz behind Lance Stroll, and he is closing in on the Aston Martin as they head to the final turn.
This fantastic pace from Fernando Alonso, almost matching Perez out front and pulling away handsomely as Verstappen takes yet another position.
Yeah, Gasly is the one that he's bypassed now, his former teammate, of course, at Red Bull. Verstappen up to 9th. We are on lap 10 of this race. Don't forget, in Spa last year, Max Verstappen started 14th, and by the end of lap 12, he was leading the race. Slightly tougher ask, it seems, here tonight.
Next up for Max Verstappen, his old nemesis, Lewis Hamilton. What a fight they had here, didn't they, in year one? That was slightly ridiculous, that race, actually, wasn't it?
The cat and mouse antics.
Yeah.
Going off the track, coming on back onto the track, brake testing each other. Yeah, ridiculous, but absorbing.
Yeah, it was a bit of OTT, that one. Valtteri Bottas pits, so early pit stops just underway.
So the safety car window might just be open now. Fernando Alonso has opened that safety car window, so if we do get a safety car, it's beneficial to pits and to come in for a change of tyres and a cheap pit stop, as it were. 21 seconds you lose by having a pit stop here from your overall race time, but when the safety car has slowed things down, that goes down to about 10-11 seconds. So chasing Hamilton for 8th. Does Max Verstappen change his driving style a little bit against Lewis Hamilton? Does Hamilton get his elbows out against Verstappen? We'll see in a moment.
Well, we'll see what he's got, but yeah, Max will be sliding around a little bit in the dirty air behind the other cars. Perez then, so we're on lap 11. We've completed 10, and let's just check this out. Verstappen 17.3 seconds behind his teammate.
So, Fernando, the hard is not looking great so far, so we'll be looking at extending.
So maybe medium soft is the strategy here, and preserving those tyres is the way to go. I mentioned that the safety car window is now open. Bernie Collins, former head of race strategy at Aston Martin, this time last year would have been telling Fernando Alonso what to do. So what is that safety car window when it comes to strategy?
Yeah, this is the minute of the race where everyone's watching. They're watching that pit stop happen. Martin described it for Bottas. They're thinking, what would we do if that causes a safety car now? And the reaction to that is safety car window open. The drivers are starting to be told that, and that means if there's a safety car, you come in, and the guys will be ready, and we'll get you out as quickly as we can.
But also we know from this place that there's a safety car, but if you think there's going to be a red flag, if the shunt's big enough and there's enough pieces spread all over the place, you think they might actually have to stop the race, you don't come in, because obviously, as Bernie knows 10 times better than I do, you don't come in because you'll get a free tyre change under the red flag.
And Bernie, who makes that call on the pit wall? The head of strategy or the team principal?
Well, you've always
2
got...
seconds.
Okay, front right is our primary concern.
After the lock-up, going into turn 1 earlier in the race. Sorry, Bernie.
That's okay. There's always this cat and mouse game. Is the accident big enough that you think it's a red flag? That's a big, big decision. Also, the teams that have 2 cars too close together, the Aston Martins, they can't stop together.
Exactly. Two cars very close together here. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen down the main straight. Here we go. Can Lewis Hamilton fight off Max Verstappen? No, he can't. Verstappen just breezes past like someone's put rocket fuel into that car today. That was no contest. The Red Bull had so much extra pace to the Mercedes.
It did, and I'm pretty sure Lewis would have saved some battery as well to use in a defensive mode there, but Verstappen marches on now up to P8.
Meanwhile, Joe Guan Yu is into the pits, Nico Hülkenberg is into the pits too, and drivers coming back out again on those hard compound tyres, which aren't really working the way that the engineers thought that they might do tonight. This is what it looked like from Max Verstappen's vantage point. Dare say it was a better view than if you were sat in the Mercedes.
Yeah, so for some reason the Red Bull rear wing opening is more efficient. It stalls out the aerodynamics better than the other teams. When it wants to, you want to dump the downforce. Downforce and drag go together, like I don't know, strawberries and cream. You can't have one without the other, basically. So you want to get rid of. You don't need the downforce in a straight line, not going around a corner. So you want to get rid of the downforce and then get rid of the drag that goes with it. And somehow Red Bull are doing that better than the others.
Right, here comes Charles Leclerc. You can see the pit window for those on the soft tyre is now open. When will Charles Leclerc have to come in and make his pit stop? He might like to get some overtaking done before he makes any pit stop, and he's not coming into the pits now. He is right on the back of Esteban Ocon. And not anymore, he's right ahead of Esteban Ocon. It's pace differentials, tyres and DRS, making that look very easy.
Yeah, this is another track where, like we had in Bahrain, where the pit straight DRS needs reducing by a number of tens of meters. It's too effective.
It certainly is, but offset, of course, by the different tyre compounds as well, as we saw with Verstappen and Hamilton.
You're right, there's an element of that, but it's, you know, they've been breezing past everywhere, haven't they? A little bit too easy.
Yes, now talking of DRS, of course, Fernando Alonso a few laps ago lost that DRS advantage he was using to pick up his pace behind Perez.
The tyres feel good, we can keep going.
And he's now starting to manage those tyres nicely. He's losing time to our race leader Sergio Perez, but he is still increasing his advantage over George Russell. Not Alonso settling for second place, but I think he's doing what he's being asked to do now. Keep that second place, keep the advantage over the Mercedes, don't worry about Perez at this moment.
And absorb the 5-second penalty.
And interestingly, Carlos Sainz now being told to box. He's been stuck behind Lance Stroll for pretty much all of this race since Stroll managed to overtake him. Ferrari want to now get him into some free air. So Sainz is going to be coming in. We're on board with Max Verstappen, harvesting on the Alpine. You can see slowing down slightly while they regenerate the energy in that Alpine. And Verstappen now, as Sainz comes into the pits, now has DRS to try and get past Esteban Ocon and make it into turn one. It's got a bit feisty between these two when they've come together in the past. Not on this occasion. Verstappen then goes past, makes up a couple of places, because not just Carlos Sainz, Karun Chandok, but also Lance Stroll into the pits.
Yeah, exactly that. I think there was a bit of gamesmanship there, because Carlos Sainz didn't come in properly. He stayed out, and I think they dummied Aston into bringing Stroll in. That's basically what's happened. And Charles Leclerc is doing a great job managing those soft lines. He's managed to stay within a pit stop of the race leader there. So his pace has actually been at level pegging with Carlos Sainz despite the softer compound. So that tyre is working.
Yeah, I think Sainz was probably given a do whatever he doesn't do. He comes in, you stay out there, because it looked like he was coming in. But the undercut is not as powerful. The tyres were really degrading heavily in Bahrain 2 weeks ago. Different type of racetrack altogether, surface and layout. So it's not the huge benefit of new tyres that we have seen, that we do see at some circuits. But yeah, Stroll then in one of the first of the front runners, shall we say, that's made a pit stop.
So they've gone medium hards and not used that soft tyre option on Lance Stroll. Carlos Sainz has his teammate, that man, Charles Leclerc, right behind him, and he won't want to be holding Charles Leclerc up for too long, with Leclerc on a different race strategy at this stage of the race. Sainz will get his go on the faster tyres, you would assume, a little bit later on, should Ferrari be able to do a medium and then a soft.
Yeah, those soft tyres are working beautifully on the Ferrari. He's 4/10 quicker than his teammate. Carlos Sainz, as you said, is beginning to catch up.
Pierre Gasly now into the pits. Karun, down to you.
Nice clean stop there. A nice clean stop there for Pierre Gasly and the Alpine team. They've switched also, Crofty, to the hard tyre.
So, yeah, the word was, wasn't it? The hard's not going that well. Lewis Hamilton's complaining about it. Lewis has just done his personal best in the Grand Prix, but it's not particularly fast. A 1:35.7. That's a good second or so off the front-running pace.
Certainly is. Head of race strategy at Aston Martin last year, part of our Sky F1 team for this year and into the future. Bernie Collins, what have you got for us?
I think there's a lot of adjustment going on down there on the pit wall, because that hard tyre, as we said, maybe not as good. So there's a lot of talk on the radio about extending the first stint, but unfortunately the drivers have been pushing hard on that medium, and now they've been asked to extend. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse game down there to see what's happening.
That's where you need some experience, Martin Brundle. You need a wise old head on an athletic pair of shoulders. Has Sergio Perez got that? We heard from his race engineer Hugh Bird, didn't we, that we had slight concerns about that front right, but as Sainz is told to box again, is this a dummy or is he coming in this time? Is Sergio Perez looking after those tyres well enough? Got a 0.4 of a second advantage over Alonso on that last lap.
Yeah, Stroll hasn't been unduly fast on his outlap, it must be said. So warm-up, they come out of the blankets at just 70 degrees, so you have to get them warmed up. Hard tyres going on. And then, of course, they're out of the blankets, and you trundle down the pit lane, so they're well underneath their optimum temperature.
Now, this is going to be interesting. You can see Lance Stroll just at the top of your screen coming down the main straight. Carlos Sainz is out of the pit lane. Rather get the feeling by extending Sainz's first stint for an extra lap or two longer. Yeah, he's come out ahead of Lance Stroll, and that's the right strategy then at this stage from Ferrari.
Yeah, we'll see what his warm-up's like, though, on the first lap or two for Sainz. But so it's the overcut, isn't it, rather than the undercut,
yeah,
which seems stronger today.
That's why I said at this stage, we'll see what happens on the next couple of laps. On board now with Max Verstappen. The car ahead of him is Charles Leclerc. Leclerc pointless in the opening race of the season, of course. First time in his Formula One career he's picked up, or not finished, I should say, that opening race of the season. He's going along very nicely until his control electronics rather shut down on him. He's got some real defending to do here, given the pace of that Red Bull behind him.
Absolutely, but Verstappen is now a pit stop behind his teammate. He might be running P6 from 15th on the grid. Look at the power of that DRS. And he doesn't want to be in front of him. He could have outbraked him there. Didn't want to be in front of him. Wanted to be second out of this corner, so he gets the same service down the pit straight. And Leclerc's pitting anyway, but Max gets the rear wing open. So he intentionally did not make that overtake into the hairpin. So
Leclerc then comes into the pits. Verstappen yet to pit, up to fourth. Esteban Ocon pits two. And that looked rather neat and tidy from the Ferrari team. Charles Leclerc makes his way down the pit lane as they service Esteban Ocon behind him. And also, just looking there, Carlos Sainz goes through. Lance Stroll going through now. This could be a bit tight as he comes out and, well, Charles Leclerc has now got ahead of Lance Stroll as well. That decision to come in with Lance Stroll, who was running in fourth place, has cost Aston Martin here, and he's now behind both Ferraris.
Yeah, so warm-up on the hard compound tyre is not good, particularly, but also it seemed particularly poor there for Stroll's Aston Martin.
Don't forget, when Fernando Alonso comes in for his pit stop, he's going to have to wait for 5 seconds before they could do any work on his car at all. He started this race to the left and outside of his position on the grid. And we've got a yellow flag and a double yellow flag waving on the track as well. And it's an Aston Martin, I'm told, that has stopped on the track.
Lance, stop the car. Lance, stop the car. Stop on track.
Now, his teammate Fernando Alonso has just gone past the start-finish line, and I think has lost an opportunity to come in and box, which they would have taken had this man stopped, I think, about 10 seconds sooner.
We could be very busy in the pit lane anytime soon if they think there's going to be a safety car, which it's such a confined track. It's a high-speed street circuit. Safety car deployed. So now those that haven't yet pitted will grab the opportunity.
Now, remember last year, Sergio Perez was leading, pitted, and then the safety car came out a lap later. It cost him the lead of the race and potential victory too. Perez is out on the track currently. I'm just trying to see where he is, just going through turn 13. Were those brakes overheating on Lance Stroll's car? That's certainly where the fire extinguishers were pointing, and we saw them overheating a bit on the grid. They were smoking away before this race got going. De Vries, Albon, Tsunoda, all into the pits. They're rushing out at McLaren for another pit stop as well, and both Piastri and Norris have been into the pits so far. And no movement at Mercedes, no movements at Alpine or Ferrari have just come into the pits anyway. I'm just looking now to see our race leader, Sergio Perez.
Is that where if that's where Stroll parked it, I'm not sure it needs a safety car. He's actually completely out of the firing line there, but maybe they've already wheeled it some distance.
So, box is the order at Mercedes for George Russell. This is not going to play very well into the hands of Fernando Alonso, because everyone has now slowed down and he's got that 5-second penalty to serve, of course. Box for Sergio Perez. They could double stack at Red Bull and bring Max Verstappen in, should they need to as well.
Yeah, well, it hasn't played into Perez's hands, has it? Remember I said it was a pit stop ahead of Verstappen, and it's a full safety car, not the virtual one, so they will all concertina up into a crocodile behind the Aston Martin safety car.
Yeah, the crumb of comfort is it's better than it was last year for him. Very neatly done for the Red Bull team. In now comes Fernando Alonso. Will he hold on to second place, because he's got that 5-second penalty to serve? 2.4 seconds stationary for Sergio Perez, which was a neat stop indeed. This wait will feel like an eternity now for Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin team, who practice well and get their man out. 2.6 seconds for George Russell. Alonso stays ahead of George Russell.
A relatively cheap penalty, isn't it, while everybody else is out there at safety car speeds against those out on track. It doesn't help you on those coming in the pit lane. But in any event, that means his troubles are cleared up in terms of the penalty, and he's out there and got great track position as Fernando Alonso, still solidly in second place.
So we've had a safety car here tonight, and we keep up our 100% record of safety car interruptions when we race here in Jeddah. And your race leader, unlike last year, Sergio Perez, has managed to survive this safety car period with his lead intact. But the big gain here surely is Max Verstappen, who got rather a cheap pit stop out of the coming in behind the safety car. He is now up to fourth. They're all going to concertina together. Verstappen's right back in this race, behind Russell, behind Alonso, and behind his teammate Sergio Perez. And we can head down to Karun.
Crofty, the man to watch on the restart is Lewis Hamilton, because of course he started on the hard tyre. He's now gone to the medium. Do you want to do Lance's issue here?
We can just have a quick look from the rear of Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, and nothing untoward at this moment. And then, of course, he's ordered to stop by his team.
Right, I'll try and get a word from Aston Martin.
Sorry, Karun, we can hear your microphone there, and then pulls over.
That didn't need a safety car. He's completely out of it. He's got it off the lovely piece of driving. Got it completely off the track. Marshals do not need to go on the track.
I wonder what the issue was there, though. It certainly wasn't the brakes issue. They might have been overheating once he stopped.
Yeah,
but and I couldn't pick up much from the sound on board either.
It sounded a bit like a bag of nails, didn't it? But it was on sort of overrun on the revs.
So, Fernando Alonso, the one Aston Martin left in this race, and onto the hard compound tyre, as are the rest of the top four. Lewis Hamilton will be on the medium tyre when we restart this race, but might have about 30 laps to do on the medium. Will they go long enough to the end? Karun, back down to you.
Yeah, Crofty, that is going to be very interesting for me, because we've seen the warm-up struggle, haven't we, on the hard tyre? So watch out for Lewis on that opening couple of laps. He's behind Sainz and Verstappen, but that first 2 laps after the restart, he's going to have the tyres in a better window. Of course, he's got to extend it, but with less fuel, I think he can do that 30 laps, you know. So this is, for a change, the safety car seems to have played out better for Lewis Hamilton than on other occasions.
Now, while we're behind the safety car, you might want to jump on board with your favourite driver, and you can do that. We've got all 20 drivers covered in every race. 19 left going in this race, of course. And you can see on board there with Lewis Hamilton, which might be the one you want to follow at the restart of this race. You can. To get started, download the Sky Sports app to your phone or your tablet device. You can do that by scanning the QR code right there. Then you need to log in with your Sky ID and head to the Sky Sports F1 channel to choose your driver. Sky Glass, Sky Q and Sky Stream customers, you can also access this experience via the interactive button on your remote control. Martin.
So Lando Norris pits to get rid of the hard compound tyres. Not a lot to lose at the back of the field like that, and put some medium compounds on. But has this ever played into Max Verstappen's hands? He's running a close P4. He was a pit stop behind. And now Perez, if he wants to win this race, is going to have to give it absolutely everything he's got, because Verstappen will be after him. And as pointed out, Lewis Hamilton on those medium compound tyres could be pretty feisty in there as well when they get going, which is at the end of this lap.
Now, last year, and I know the tyres have changed in their construction for this year, those mediums, the C3, didn't go further than 16 laps in the race. So that's the size of problem he's got.
And try to push from safety car line 1 for Hamilton. He just beat it.
Xavi, you need to tell me that before.
Copy.
Okay.
No, but come on.
So you can push between the safety car lines. You're not limited there. You're not measured there. And basically, he should have been pushing hard, and they gave him the information way too late. He'll be angry about that.
Those safety car lines are before the pit lane exit and after entry and after the pit lane exit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to regulate your speed.
And what you can do is go flat out through that bit.
Yeah.
And then sort it out, sort your earliest time of arrival out at a later stage.
You can understand why he's a little bit ticked off there.
Absolutely.
With his strategy department. You see Carlos Sainz there getting very close to the Red Bull of Max Verstappen as he's pushing a little bit. Safety car is now coming in. We're going to have a restart here in Jeddah. Sergio Perez will lead us away down the main straight. He's got the jump. Fernando Alonso behind him. George Russell picking up a toe. Max Verstappen waiting. Fernando Alonso covers off George Russell. Perez leads them through the first couple of corners. Behind Russell, Verstappen, then Sainz, then Hamilton, and then Leclerc. And there's two Alpines. Gasly and Esteban Ocon getting pretty close. Ocon ahead of his teammate. They're trying to weave a little bit as well. Get some heat into those hard compound tyres. And everyone is safely through. And the 19 cars still running here in Jeddah, with Sergio Perez leading the race as he has done from start to finish so far.
Yeah, desperately trying to get some tyre temperature, therefore some tyre pressure to go with it. And that it'll come out. A Formula 1 car is a brilliant device for heating up tyres, both on the brakes and on the throttle. And of course the lateral forces with the downforce going through the corners. Max loves to ride high on the 12-degree banking of turn 13. He prefers it up there, but a clean restart then. But Lewis Hamilton is the absolute outlier in the top 14. He's the only one on the medium compound tyres.
Meanwhile, his teammate George Russell under pressure from Max Verstappen, and look how that Red Bull is gaining down the far side of the track on the Mercedes. Can Russell find any way to defend? No DRS for Verstappen for the first 2 laps after this restart, but quite frankly, he doesn't need it. Look at that pace, and look how he's getting closer, 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 but not quite close enough. Under braking to get past the Mercedes. Surely, though, only a matter of time, as his teammate Sergio Perez is already 2 seconds clear of Fernando Alonso in second place. Then comes Russell, and then right on his gearbox is Max Verstappen. Hamilton right on the gearbox of Carlos Sainz. Sainz under pressure from Hamilton. Verstappen stays where he is. Sainz stays where he is. There were 4 cars there, and they could have come out in any order from that first turn, as Hamilton now is through and past Carlos Sainz. Better traction coming out of the slower corner. Nice move from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he just got better drive off the corner with those tyres that are fired up. Sainz very close to weaving and getting a look from the stewards there, I'd imagine. Just a touch out of order, but it didn't matter anyway. Hamilton's got so much more grip and confidence.
But will that grip, will that confidence help him now to close up on Max Verstappen in, what, 10 laps or so? Max Verstappen breezed past Hamilton, and we're going to get a repeat in the opposite order. We'll see. Here goes Lewis Hamilton. Didn't quite have enough straight to do it into turn 1. But look at him out of the corner here.
Yeah, because Carlos got too deep into turn one and candy from a baby in the end for Lewis to just drive up the inside on the exit and get the job done. Now Lewis is going to be fascinating here on those tyres to the end of this Grand Prix.
Can he go to lap 50 in the checkered flag on a set of medium tyres that only did 16 laps maximum in the 2022 race? That might have been because of the safety car, though. Not saying that was the life of those tyres, but that was the maximum that anyone did on those tyres this time last year. Here we go, high speed, street circuit. Positions gained, 11 for Max Verstappen. He's going to be under pressure, though, in a moment from Lewis Hamilton, but he wants to get past George Russell if he possibly can, and we're on board now to see if he can do that. Into turn one, Russell has him covered. Doesn't go too deep, does he? Out of turn two, nicely done, and stays ahead.
Yeah, Russell knows he now needs to save his battery for a defense mode down the pit straight, but the drag reduction system is now enabled, and that just energizes the Red Bull.
Words from the FIA is that the safety car came out because the GPS was showing the car as on track, therefore they didn't want to take any risks. There was maybe a little bit of the rear wing hanging out. That's why the safety car came out.
Yeah, tyres, they feel very good. I like this tyre.
Copy, mate, copy.
He likes these tyres. George Russell says he rather likes these hard compound tyres too. And I'm sure Sergio Perez is rather delighted with them, given the advantage he's now got out in front and was around about 9/10 of a second quicker than Alonso on the last lap. Sainz is now relegated down to 6th, ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc. DRS is enabled. Yuki Tsunoda ahead of Ocon, ahead of Gasly, completing the top 10. So now, what can George Russell do to keep the Red Bull behind him? He hasn't got DRS. Max Verstappen will have his rear wing open wide. There it goes. And he just breezes down the inside. That looked like F1 against F2, given the pace difference between the two cars, and that is not an insult in any way, shape or form to anyone who's designed that Mercedes car. It's just that the Red Bull looked like it was in a different class.
Yeah, he didn't even have to wait to come through the last corner and do it on the pit straight, did he? Just absolutely so slipstream, rear wing open. What a device Red Bull have got there, haven't they? I mean, it's when his rear wing is open against a midfield car, when he's behind a midfield, he's got 17 miles an hour more top speed. You wouldn't really run into it 17 miles an hour, would you?
No, certainly not. So Max Verstappen up into 3rd place. He started 15th on the grid, and only one man has ever won from 15th place in the history of the Formula One World Championship, and it's the man in front of Max Verstappen at the moment, Fernando Alonso, in Singapore in 2008, and there may have been a few contributing factors to that victory on that particular occasion.
And Sainz has been warned for that weaving I talked about a few laps ago down the pit straight. It was a bit over the top. But that was when he was trying to keep Lewis behind him.
So Sergio Perez going very nicely out in front. His pace is pretty exceptional. His teammate might be the car behind him very shortly, as here he comes through turn 22 and 23. Alonso will be able to see Verstappen in his mirrors. And for the Red Bull team that finished 1-2 in the season opener, they might be looking here at the start of lap 25 at a 1st and 2nd place in this race too. Verstappen had a little look down the inside, but then thought, no, I could just bide my time a little bit here because I'll get some DRS down the main straight, give me even more speed, which I quite plainly do not need to make any overtaking today. And here we go. Alonso has nothing to fight with. It is Red Bull 1, Red Bull 2. Perez over Verstappen. Verstappen is making overtaking look very, very simple today.
Yeah, again, Fernando didn't need to lose 100th of a second or one heartbeat fighting that. There's his real fight behind him. And look how feisty Lewis Hamilton looks now on those medium compound tyres. So that, I think, is going to be an enormous fight over the final place on the podium, providing the two Red Bulls get to the end, between Alonso, Russell, Hamilton. Where are the Ferraris? They're not too far behind either, are they?
No, they're not. But Hamilton, the outlier on those medium compound tyres. Can he get a podium here for Mercedes? Potentially. Are Mercedes facing a choice here to let Lewis Hamilton pass George Russell and to go and try and attack Fernando Alonso, who pretty much told us on Sky Sports F1 in our build-up to this race, his fight wasn't with the Red Bulls today, his fight was pretty much with the Mercedes.
Yeah, well, he dragged those hard compound tyres around at the beginning, didn't he, Lewis, and sort of tolerated them. And, of course, I think should he get near to George, it's just common sense for both drivers and the team to let Lewis Hamilton through. You know, the way it's played out, the safety car situation, but he's got to get to the end on those mid. They've got to stick with him through the remainder of this Grand Prix, of which we're only just over halfway through. What
Alonso's trying to do here, very cleverly, is what he did behind Sergio Perez in the opening part of this race. Use DRS to help his pace down the straights. That Aston Martin is a little bit draggy, and stick within that 1 second behind Max Verstappen, not to attack him, but to try and break free of George Russell. Bernie Collins at Sky Race Control, come on in.
Yes, there's big winners and losers from that safety car, as we always get. The Ferrari we discussed, losing out in that by having gone too early. The big winner actually, Tsunoda, P10. He was up in P8, now he's lost 2 positions since that, but he started way down P16 on the grid, so without the car pace, just waiting for the safety car, has made it into that top 10 and looking like he could hold on to that position. Actually, you've got a few unusual other things happening. Piastri stayed out under the safety car on that hard. He's already done 24 laps with 24 more to go, so that's going to be a very long stint. And the comms that we heard from Alonso on these tyres feel good, that was in response to his engineer saying no worries on life, push to the end.
And push he is trying to do, but the fastest man on the track is Max Verstappen, who's just set a fastest lap in this race. And you mentioned Yuki Tsunoda, Bernie.
Oh my God, brake failure.
Oh dear, Tsunoda having a better night than he did last time in Saudi when he didn't even start. Alex Albon, brake failure. We can pick him up here with his teammate Logan Sargent right behind him. And he went off the track there, Martin, rather than try and apply the brakes and get all out of shape. Can Alex Albon make it into the pits here? He's still racing away as Logan Sargent gets past him and up into 13th place. Albon is keeping out of the way, I think, of cars now.
Yeah, he'll have to come in the pit. I don't think failure is not failure, is it? Otherwise he won't be doing 200 miles an hour down the back straight. But no, he continues. So he's got brake issues, I think, would probably be more descriptive, but he's definitely, as you say, trying to keep out of the way.
Yeah, but hang on a minute. Look what's happening now to Alex Albon. He had the option, didn't he, to come into the pits. Didn't happen. And if that car can't carry on, where is it going to end up? And could this be another safety car period? On board now with Alex Albon.
He shouldn't stop out on track with brake issues. As long as he's got drive, he'll be able to somehow cruise it back to the pits.
I think they're expecting him to cruise back at the end of this lap. But at the moment, there is a very, very slow Williams. Has he got enough drive?
Yeah, it drives no issue. Drives no issue. It just stopping by the sounds of it. But yeah, so I'm surprised he didn't come in the previous time around. But there's a lot. Because of the safety car bunched everybody up. Albon won't really be getting in anybody's way as he goes back to the pits.
Hamilton's got DRS now behind his teammate George Russell. Bernie Collins, down to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say with the Albon stuff, sometimes there's issues they can fix in the car, a little default here or there, so maybe that's just why he left him out, see if they can get that sorted and continue on track.
And on board with Hamilton, with that DRS, getting closer to George Russell, who's looking in his mirrors to see where his teammate is. His teammate looking to go the long way round at turn 1, keeping George Russell guessing somewhat. Mercedes don't look like they've ordered these two to swap over.
It's incoming though, isn't it? Surely.
Got to be. Because Hamilton on the medium tyre, the faster tyre, and has more pace than his teammate. And all the while this goes on, he's being held up a little bit by his teammate.
Yeah, it's because they're losing out a little bit now to Fernando Alonso. The two Ferraris, mind you, the Ferraris are only doing mid 1 minute 34s on these tyres. The Ferrari is slow on the hard compound tyre and dropping back in 6th and 7th.
So Perez 5 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, 4-second gap back to Fernando Alonso, 2-second gap back to George Russell. Lewis Hamilton has DRS. I'm told they have said to George Russell, you need to get out of the way here. And Russell saying, well, no, sorry, Alonso's got a 5-second penalty, I need to keep going. And now they've just revealed to him that he's already served it. And that's a penalty that is going to force Alexander Albon out of this race, the penalty being mechanical, and he's trundling down the pit lane. Karun Chandhok to you. Karun Chandhok come in.
Yeah, Crofty, he has just crawled past me there. I think that could be the end of it. Mechanics wisely trying not to stand in his path. He did manage to get it stopped, well done, but yeah, that is going to be the end of the road. So unfortunate for him. Both the Williams is running reasonably. Logan Sargent, despite not being able to set a time in qualifying, up into 13th. So they were on the cusp, weren't they, of maybe sneaking in another point.
Point for Alex Albon in the first race of the season.
Alonso with a 5-second penalty here. Let's fight later, but let's manage to try it a little bit now.
Alonso served his penalty at the stop.
Again, in for a lead.
So, and Russell's just done a personal best, actually, on the previous lap and pulled out a little bit. So George now has decided he's going to drive it hard to keep his teammate behind him.
Still not quite sure that was what Mercedes needed, and Hamilton's now out of that DRS range with Russell picking up the pace. There's Logan Sargent, I was going to say finished 12th in the opening race of the season, and now is looking to try and take 12th place off Nico Hülkenberg. It was a decent debut in Bahrain for Logan Sargent, had his troubles in qualifying yesterday, but on the medium tyre, has that Williams got some pace to try and sneak a second point or two for the season so far? Long way to go here, 21 laps to go in this race. Out in front, 5 seconds the gap. Perez to Verstappen. Verstappen is lapping at the moment just a little bit quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez, but only by a 1/10 of a second on that last lap.
That's a handy sort of gap, isn't it, for Perez? 5 seconds, and as you say, there's been a 10th here and a 10th there between the pair of them. So at the moment, Perez is showing he's got the pace to keep his teammate at bay.
As the song says, well, the streets have no name, but I think in Formula One terms, the streets have a pretty decent name. It's called Perez. When he gets on a street track, he comes alive, doesn't he? Wins, of course, in Baku and in Monaco and in Singapore, maybe here in Saudi tonight. Logan Sargent trying to get past the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. Medium tyres giving him better grip coming out of the corner. Hülkenberg fights him off for the time being. This is a cracking little battle from a man in his 182nd start up against a man in only his second start. Nico Hülkenberg returning full-time to Formula One. An impressive qualifying once more, trying to keep the young rookie at bay, Zhou Guan Yu, right behind, trying to pick up the pieces.
For good measure, as Hülkenberg was taking the mickey out of me on the grid. About his favourite line.
I think he was a day late and $1 short with that line, to be fair.
Brundle bingo.
5 seconds over now, the gap between Perez and Verstappen. And we can head as we watch Logan Sargent down to the Williams pit wall. James Vowles, the team boss. James, looking good for Alex Albon tonight before that issue. What happened?
Yeah, just as you said, looking good. He was quick on both compounds. Just started complaining just a few laps ago an ability to slow the car, to break the car. Discs look okay, integrity system looks okay. We need to understand what's happened, but clearly frustrating for him. That was a quick car here today.
So is that the brake-by-wire, this sort of electronic system, James, then, rather than anything sort of physical?
Unsure as of yet. All I can really tell you is that the discs are still responding with temperature, so it's just a question of where else in the system we had a problem.
And James, Logan Sargent, we're watching the battle currently. He's getting his elbows out there against Nico Hülkenberg and doing a fine job, but not quite getting past his man just yet.
No, not yet, but that sort of middle tyre, the medium, is performing very, very well. You said in the earlier stints you would have heard Lewis, I think, complaining of it. Definitely Logan was complaining of it as well. It's a tough tyre, but he'll make it to the end from here. We've got 20 to go, and it's just a good tyre by comparison. So I think you'll just see, given the 7 laps difference between the two, Logan should be able to make his way through. How high he can go? Well, points are on the card today if he gets it all right.
And any concern with that brake issue on the other car?
Without knowing fully what it is, yes. But obviously over the next probably 5-10 minutes we'll have a much better understanding of what happened.
James, thanks ever so much indeed, and thanks for joining us this weekend. We've got 2 Red Bulls out in front from an Aston Martin, 2 Mercedes, and 2 Ferraris. Mercedes keeping Ferrari at bay here. Bernie Collins.
Yeah, the Mercedes battle is really going to be an interesting one because one car on the hard, the car in front, is currently the slower car because of that hard tyre. So Hamilton's pushing to get past on the radio, trying to see what the team can do. But at the end of the race, will Hamilton be the slower car? So will he be the one in front holding the other guy up? It's going to be really interesting to see that play out over the next 18 or so laps.
Russell, with that 1.8 second gap now to Hamilton, is kind of making that decision for the team, isn't he? But slightly alarmingly, once again out front, the 2 Red Bulls, and Perez really is keeping Verstappen at 5 seconds at bay, but they're a second a lap faster, at least a second a lap faster than their closest 3 pursuers, and 2 seconds faster than many in the midfield.
So what I would say as well, Martin, I'm looking at the pace of George Russell compared to the 2 Ferraris. All the doom and gloom coming out about Mercedes and their car and how they're going to have to change it. Toto Wolff saying in 6 or 7 races time it'll be a completely different car. Tonight it seems to have a much better race pace than either of the 2 Ferraris, with George Russell on the same tyres.
It does, but don't forget the safety car concertinaed them all up and took a lot of the gap out, and there's a long way to go yet. But Mercedes are definitely talking a much better game for the changes they've got coming in the next, I would say, in the first half of the season.
Let's have a look at Charles Leclerc then, as Alex Albon walks away from the garage. That's a little lock up there, and that's not going to help his race pace too much. Down at turn 23, corner that has been reprofiled a bit and still biting from time to time.
Obviously the surface of these slick tyres, you don't need, the only reason you need tread is clear water, same on your road car, but you can't run those balls like these things, but they melt and stick to the road. But when you go through a runoff area like that, although that one's pretty well used, but you just pick up dust in the surface of your tyre, and it takes a few corners, sometimes a lap or two, to get rid of it.
Right, get ready to salute the sergeants if he can get past Nico Hülkenberg. Not on this particular occasion. Hülkenberg putting up a decent defence. His teammate Kevin Magnussen just ahead of him. The 2 Haas cars running just out of the points currently. Sargent's chomping away, trying to get past, but not to any great success so far. It's his first F1 race, obviously. Here got all out of shape there, didn't he? As he got on the power. Has raced 5 times in F2 here in Jeddah, retired twice, didn't score a points. Oscar Piastri, the other rookie the rookie at McLaren, raced here and won. I think Nick De Vries is the only driver in the AlphaTauri currently that hadn't raced here before.
Yeah, we highlight these issues. I don't know what to do.
Understood.
Well, what does he do? 6th and 7th for Ferrari would not be a return that they really fancied. I think for Charles, starting 12th, P7 wasn't a bad target for Carlos Sainz. They thought a podium was on tonight.
Yeah, they're going to be thoroughly disappointed with this. Sainz now into the 1-minute 33s, but you've got the 2 Red Bulls in the 32s. Leclerc, with that mistake, has now dropped 2.1 seconds behind. Make that 1.9 as he crosses the line.
So the gap under 5 seconds between Perez and Verstappen, but Perez is still doing a very solid job. Your race leader here, just going through turn 13, that banked corner. Max Verstappen taking a nice line behind him too. The gap to Fernando Alonso between Verstappen and Alonso, 10 seconds now. Such is the pace of these 2 Red Bulls. Bernie Collins, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is now, if there was another safety car, what are these guys going to do now? And the big thing is that the top 5 guys all have another medium to fit. So at this stage, they could get back on that preferred tyre, but the 2 Ferraris do not. The only thing they've got left in the bag are soft tyres. So is that going to make it to the end? This is right at the wrong point for them for a safety car to come out.
Another 6 laps, it'd be right in the right window, Martin, for Ferrari.
Yeah, it's sort of luck of the draw, isn't it? You can't control that, other people's incidents, accidents and unreliability. But you have to say, once George realised that Fernando didn't have a penalty tape and he was being told to let Lewis through, he really got down the road nicely. Still 2.4 behind Alonso. But the 2 Red Bulls, I tell you what, that's quite a pace they're pulling out front to get to the end of the Grand Prix, as they really are now focusing on each other.
Just a little thing here, and I know we're only in the second race of 23. As you see Yuki Tsunoda and Kevin Magnussen getting quite close to each other. Magnussen's been catching Tsunoda and now has DRS down the main straight. Tsunoda's looking to see where K-Mag's going to come at him. Is he going to dive down the inside in the Haas? He's just a bit too far back and locks up as well. Has to take avoiding action. He was getting very dangerously close to running into the back of the AlphaTauri. Yeah, I know it's only the second race of the season. Perez at the moment with the fastest lap. If it stays this way and he keeps hold of the fastest lap, he does lead the championship at the end of this race.
By a point in the fastest lap. Obviously, they'll have had a 1-2 and a 2-1, effectively, those drivers. So, yeah, what's Verstappen got? He's 3/10 up on this current lap. So as we move into the final 15 laps, if Verstappen's going to make a charge at his teammate, it needs to start now.
I don't think Perez has ever led the championship before as well, so that might be extra incentive. Hulkenberg brushed the wall there.
He did. Looks like he was looking left. He was looking left in his mirrors and wandered right.
Yeah, don't want to do that more than once. He's got away with it. Who's to say he wouldn't get away with it the next time?
So Verstappen then now fastest lap and just took 0.4 of a second out of his teammate Perez. He is getting on with it.
Yeah, 15 laps to go. Is this now, ain't no Verstappen time? Is he now starting to make the charge on his teammate Sergio Perez? You can ride on board with Max Verstappen or any of the 18 drivers still going here. If you're a Sky Sports F1 viewer, we've got all the onboards and the team radio for you this season. And Max Verstappen might just give you some decent action between now and the checkered flag.
Keep doing what you're doing. We'll have him. We have a plan. We'll have him. Stay close.
As might Logan Sargent as well. Zhou Guanyu is still right in this battle. Sargent trying to get up to 12th place. Hulkenberg is holding him off, and holding him off well, but he just wandered into the wall on the last lap. Well, that had caused a bit of a scrubbing of the tyres and the wheel rims as Valtteri Bottas now comes into pits. Was it last? See, Alfa Romeo might still, Martin, decide the destiny of this fastest lap at some stage as they fit on the soft tyres on Valtteri Bottas's Alfa Romeo. Didn't they claim the fastest lap last weekend?
Zhou Guanyu, wasn't it?
Yes, they did.
Didn't get a point for it because they're outside the top 10. But there are the two Red Bulls then. And on this lap, you'd have to say Perez is a little bit faster as he's used his battery probably in a different way. So that's interesting. Again, he looks like he can match whatever Verstappen's going to throw at him.
132.2 for Sergio Perez on the last lap, 132.3 for Max Verstappen, a 133.3 for Fernando Alonso. It's a second a lap that the Red Bulls have on the Aston Martin.
Indeed, and Max Verstappen saying there's a weird noise at high speed.
A weird noise?
On the radio.
Is that just the wind whistling past his helmet, I wonder?
No, you do pick up. You get all sorts of noises coming in. And mostly when you're leading at Le Mans or somewhere like that and you think everything's going to fall off any minute.
So Perez from Verstappen, who has only finished second to a Red Bull teammate once in his career. That was Daniel Ricciardo in Malaysia in 2016. Zhou Guanyu now a lot closer, it seems, to Logan Sargent, and Nick de Vries right at the tail of this little trio. And if you want to go to our battle channel at Sky Sports F1, this is what you'll be faced with. Closest battle on the track.
I feel like the Manshaft is running a bit rough.
It's just the B-bell offset that's left, Max. Can't do anything on the B-bell map itself.
I mean, I'm saying the drive shaft.
Okay, stand by.
He's feeling a vibration then. That's what he's feeling, a really high frequency vibration, I'd imagine.
So what is the B-bell? For those
brake balance.
At home scratching their head saying, what's that short for?
Brake balance.
And the drive shaft was what, of course...
It's nothing to do with the brake balance, but yeah. So,
causes problems last night, didn't it?
You've got the engine, the gearbox behind it, the differential turns the power through 90 degrees. Whoops. That didn't look too much like the track there for the leader. And or for second place. Hello. They'll get noted again on that, but yeah, engine and gearbox in line. Differential turns the power through 90 degrees, and the drive shaft transmits it out to the rear wheels. And the drive shafts obviously take quite a pounding around here as you go over the curbs on full throttle, giving him a lot of torque.
Here comes Zhou Guanyu making a move on Logan Sargent. So Zhou Guanyu slips past the Williams. That's a season of Formula One's extra experience there for the Alfa Romeo driver. And now Nick de Vries right on the gearbox.
It makes like a weird noise at high speed.
Okay, understood, Max. We are monitoring. I'll let you know. We are happy at the moment, Max.
They did something wrong.
Okay, stand by. Keep going for the moment.
Look, Red Bull are not without their issues this weekend. They changed the gearbox. The gearbox that Max Verstappen was running last night has been changed again to the original gearbox that he was going to run and ran in Bahrain. We've just seen two Red Bulls go straight through at turn 23, and I don't know if that's connected or not. Their pace is still absolutely electric, but it's not. It's swan-like, isn't it? Graceful on the surface and kicking legs underneath the water.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's quite. You don't often hear Max that agitated. He's very, very concerned about that. But I think it's intentional. I think they know they can go through there 3 times before they get a warning, and why not take that time and keep the gap or close the gap? So both drivers gaming the system there.
Monitoring radio traffic at Sky Race Control, Bernie Collins.
Yeah, so just that message from Verstappen there. He's clearly concerned about what's going on, but the team will be monitoring that. They know the issue from yesterday. They have the data from there. So the team will have a much clearer idea what's going on, and you're actually trying to do it the other way around. You're trying to build confidence in the driver's head, even though you think there may be an underlying issue. And interestingly, they're both about to close up to the back of Bottas, so starting to maybe hit the last driver on the track for some back marker traffic too.
Valtteri Bottas, who put the soft tyre on, is still lapping about 2.2 seconds a lap slower than our race leader, Sergio Perez, who holds the fastest lap currently.
Max, any more feedback on that issue from before?
Well, yeah, it's still there.
Yep, understood.
Not a whole lot they can do about it. Bit surprised they haven't asked him to back off a little bit and bring it home, but you know, if you've got it, what can you do? How slow do you have to go to protect that?
If I was the driver as well, Martin, after being told by the team, don't worry, we're happy, everything's okay, when my race engineer then comes on the radio and says, any more feedback for us that you've got? That would instantly put into my mind something's wrong, but that's just me as a worrier.
Yeah, well, they're obviously looking very closely on the pit wall, aren't they? Some data.
Yuki Tsunoda holding off Kevin Magnussen. Still, Magnussen's come back for another go at him.
I'm having a bit of a long pedal. Brake pedal.
Yeah, copy, Checo. Having a look.
6 braking zones here, 2 described as heavy. Kevin Magnussen outbraked himself last time he tried to get past Yuki Tsunoda. Now goes wheel to wheel into turn 1, has to back out, hasn't quite got the pace to get ahead going into that corner. Another 50 metres, it'd have easily been passed.
Yeah, so long brake pedal means often when your pads and discs start getting worn a bit and everything gets hot, but the pedal on a Formula 1 car or a good racing car barely moves when you press it. It pretty much transmits all of your foot and leg and calf energy into the brakes, and so therefore if the pedal starts sort of squishing a little bit more, you really notice it in these cars, and your feet are like in stirrups, one on the throttle and one on the brake pedal, and he's just reporting back that the quality of the brake pedal is changing.
I think they're a bit happier now.
We're happy with the brake pedal, just a little bit of wear.
There you go, Hugh Bird with the message to Sergio Perez. Norris and Piastri have decided there's a battle to be had in the 2 McLarens, last in the Constructors' Championship, and not doing much tonight to get themselves off the bottom of the table, it seems. De Vries and Sargent just ahead of them. I wonder if Sargent's tyres are starting to go off a little bit. He's losing pace to those in front and becoming something of a blockage to those behind. George Russell complaining of a few vibrations as well. Is there any driver out there that is happy at this moment in time? I haven't heard from Fernando Alonso for a while. I wonder what he's thinking.
Well, he's just been deliriously happy all year, hasn't he? How did he describe the Aston Martin? A beautiful car to drive 2 weeks ago. He's been happy with everything tonight, and so he should be. He's up on the podium at the moment. And those medium compound tyres then of Lewis's haven't really paid him any dividends later on, have they?
Certainly have.
He got close. George resisted, and now he's pulled away. And therefore he will be reminding the team and all of us that I was right to ignore that team order just then.
Lewis Hamilton with a century of wins, of course, 103 in his career. Fernando Alonso on the verge of a century of podiums. He's on 99 going into this race. If he makes it to 100, he matches Lewis Hamilton. Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, whose seat, of course, he took at Aston Martin for this season. Alain Prost and Kimi Raikkonen becoming the 6th driver to get 100 podiums in Formula One. And he's got about 8 laps of which to navigate to do just that. One day Logan Sargent would like to be somewhere near 100 podiums. It's only his 2nd race, and at the moment he's having to hold on to 14th place with Nick de Vries right behind him, Lando Norris right behind him, Oscar Piastri right behind him. DRS is being used by the 2 McLarens to bring them ever closer. Zach Brown, who cut a very forlorn figure leaving Bahrain a couple of weeks ago, I don't think he's going to be smiling much after this one tonight as well. Norris 16th, Piastri 17th, not where McLaren thought they would be, as Logan Sargent under pressure from Nick de Vries. Going into the hairpin, de Vries manages to dive down the inside, and I dare say here, Lando Norris with a better exit out of that final corner can try and get past the Williams on the straight. Sargent has got DRS to help him defend. Norris has to try and get a bit of a slipstream, can't do that. He stays in 16th place, de Vries up to 14th.
Yeah, they both had DRS, but the McLaren's obviously horribly draggy, isn't it? Because it lost out in the drag race. De Vries managed to get through.
Okay, target 32.6 plus 0.4.
Is Max doing the same?
Max's last lap 32.6.
I mean, so why you tell me 33.0?
This target plus 0.4, jobs are good.
We are pushing without a reason, guys. But up to you.
He's feeling suspicious there, isn't he? Why did you tell me to slow down then, if he's doing a 32.6?
But do they mean, when they say plus 4.4, do they mean a 32.2? So like go faster than a 33.6? Because that's exactly what he just did, a 133.2.
Yeah. I think he meant he got a plus 4. I mean, he's got enough space now, hasn't he? Even if Max takes 0.4 out of him per lap, Sergio has got it covered. He's driven beautifully, absolutely beautifully.
Mika Häkkinen drove some beautiful cars, didn't he, for McLaren, winning World Championships for them. Sadly, not a World Championship winning car as it stands for Lando Norris or for Oscar Piastri. It's getting a bit of a battering as he goes over the curb there. By the time they go to Baku, and there will be updates coming to this McLaren car, and then further updates later on in the season, maybe by about Barcelona time, as they hope to propel themselves up the order a little bit. Here comes Lando Norris, though, behind Logan Sargent. He's got DRS, it's not helping him, it's just keeping him in touch.
Cracking battle, but it is for 15th, 16th and 17th, sadly. But good to see.
It's pretty much the only battle out on the track currently, unless Kevin Magnussen can get a bit closer to Tsunoda.
Guys, we don't really need this. So we're pushing now?
You're free to push. Free to push.
Oh, okay. So in other words, Max will push, so you need to drive it hard to the end. But he's got him covered.
Yeah.
He's got him covered very well.
I think Sergio was like, look, I'm in the lead here. I'd like to stay in the lead. It's good for the team. You know, we can get a 1-2. It'll all be really nice. I'll be leading the championship. But Red Bull, I think, rightly saying, no, go out and race there. This is good.
And Sergio has nicked the fastest lap back as well, hasn't he? So he's got the World Championship point for that at the moment.
And that's that extra point, if it stays Perez over Verstappen, will decide who leads after this race. Verstappen, who once upon a time had number 33 on his car, has actually led the World Championship for 33 races now. Trying to make it 34 tonight. Perez trying to make it 1.
And Max won't get that 16 in 21 victories, though, will he?
Which he's done 15 out of 20. No driver's ever done 16 out of 21. Max matching Michael Schumacher, who won 15 out of 20 once upon a time. But as it stands at the moment, the 16 out of 21 record is not going to go his way. He'll have to start again. I'm sure he'll be quite happy to start again.
Yeah. So even with the DRS open there, the McLaren couldn't pass the Williams. So I think their problems are very clear for everyone to see.
On board with your race leader, Sergio Perez, a 1:32.2 on the previous lap, a 1:32.8 for Max Verstappen. So he's built up a bit more of a gap.
Can you see any damage in the car?
So far, no feedback. Stand by.
Something is not right. Probably sliding everywhere.
He's currently running last and 18th, Valtteri Bottas. They might have cleared something out of his radiator when he came into the pits to put on those soft tyres a few laps ago. It's certainly not helped his pace those soft tyres. He's very much adrift of that battle between De Vries, Sargent, Norris and Piastri. And pulling away from Max Verstappen is Sergio Perez, which, you know, for the neutrals, Martin, who want to see a battle in the championship, a Perez win tonight is no bad thing.
It's a good thing, great thing for Formula One in the championship. Max has obviously recovered from his 15th on the grid with his drive shaft problem, but this is for the final World Championship point, and it matters.
And a third time of asking for Kevin Magnussen into turn 1, and still Yuki Tsunoda hangs on to that 10th place to try and put a smile on his team boss Franz Tost' face, who said, oh, as we see the two McLarens going wheel to wheel here, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris then still ahead of Piastri, but getting aggressive. At least Piastri getting some experience in how to run wheel to wheel in Formula One.
Yeah, there's only Bottas behind them, but this would be quite a statement if Piastri can wiggle his way through there and past Lando Norris. But what McLaren can't afford is a third broken front wing this evening.
And this is how Piastri got ahead initially of Lando Norris. Nice little move down the inside. Norris thought, right, I'll try with some DRS to get past, and he did just that. Going the long way round into turn 1, but then he gets the inside line for the second corner. Piastri will use that as a learning experience, I'm sure.
What's the fastest lap?
We are not concerned about that at the moment, Max.
Yeah, but I am.
Yeah.
Right, Kevin Magnussen's got ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. But Tsunoda's coming back at him again. Is Tsunoda just ahead? Yes, he is. Is Magnussen going to try down the inside? Yes, he is. Are they both going to lock up? Yes, they do. Kevin Magnussen, is he going to hold on to 10th place? Only just. Kevin Magnussen, it took him a few goes, but there you are. There is a World Championship point currently, but it ain't over yet, folks.
No, it isn't. Tsunoda will have DRS now, won't he? And you'd have to say he ought to be with a good chance of using some of that, but Magnussen is really charging away, having got the move done. And Verstappen is like, look, it might not be important to you, the team. It is important to me.
And that's the moment where he saw Magnussen coming, who's on 9-lap older hard compound tyres than Yuki Tsunoda. And look how he's pulling away now.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Perez Verstappen. The fastest lap doesn't concern us at the moment, but you can understand why Verstappen is concerned about it and would want that extra point.
Well, it's a net 2 points, isn't it, for him? It's one Perez won't get and one he would get, and vice versa.
He'd quite like, I'm sure, to still be leading the World Championship. The man who came into this race off the back of a couple of consecutive victories from pole. Couldn't get pole because of that drive shaft failure in qualifying last night, but has made his way up from 15th on the grid to finish second as it stands currently, and had to be 4 of his last 10 starts from that low on the grid. He'd finish up on the podium.
This is quite the statement from Sergio Perez this evening.
Yeah.
He's strong on street circuits. I know this kind of really doesn't look much like a street circuit, does it? But imagine, you know, remember his victories last year in Monaco, and particularly that stunning victory in challenging conditions in Singapore. But I found this fascinating that Perez had an answer on that restart. More than had an answer.
And absolutely blasted away at the time from Fernando Alonso, who was the second place man. Back to Sargent, Norris, Piastri in that order, 15th, 16th and 17th. And you can still watch that on our Battle channel. Sergio Perez on the verge of leading a World Championship, the only time a Mexican driver has ever led the World Championship. Pedro Rodriguez won the opening race back in 67. I think it would mean a lot to Sergio Perez, even at this stage of the season.
So there could be a possible 5-second penalty for Alonso end of the race. Gap 4.5.
For what though? No indication on our screens and our messages from race control as to what that might be. Corinne Chandok, down to you. Corinne Chandok, come on in. We'll go to
there you are. Crofty, they have been on the team radio to Lando Norris saying don't make it too difficult for Oscar Piastri. If you guys at home have been listening on the Battle channel, you may have heard that. That's an interesting call, isn't it? The rookie being given free rein to fight the number one at McLaren, and here he is.
I don't think the message has got through.
The only thing I can think of on Alonso is the jack touched the car, the rear jack. They sort of positioned the jack, didn't lift the car up. I don't know if you're allowed to do that. I didn't notice it at the time. Before...
Certainly the front jack was very, very close.
The rear jack was on. It wasn't lifted, but it was on, and I wonder...
Message has got through to Lando Norris, who is not making it difficult for Oscar Piastri whatsoever and concedes 16th place to him.
Yeah, so as Sergio Perez asked on the radio, what is the fastest lap, which of course he still has at a 1:32.188, and they're in the 33s at the moment in these closing phases, but he knows Verstappen will be going for it, giving half a chance on the last lap. But yeah, so that's the only thing I can think of. So maybe there's been some talk of did Aston Martin touch the car before the 5 seconds? That's the only that pops into my head when they're telling Russell Alonso might get another 5-second penalty yet.
If they did touch the car, that's not serving a penalty correctly, which Esteban Ocon got in Bahrain, and that wasn't a 5-second penalty. Right. That was a 10-second penalty, so that would relegate Alonso to 5th.
So currently Russell is 4.3 behind. It'd be nice to have 5 seconds in just in case, but we think we're all clean.
Okay, so there's definitely some conversation going on. But you're right, when they didn't serve the penalty correctly in Bahrain, Alpine, they got a much bigger penalty than that. But there is no doubt about it, the jacks, or certainly the rear jack, was touching the car way before 5 seconds.
Does that count as working on the car, or does it count as getting ready? I would suggest if it's touching the car, you're gaining an advantage for when you are allowed to start working on it. And George Russell is keeping himself within that 5 seconds then. While out in front, it's over 7 seconds for Sergio Perez. And Rowan Ruia is waiting with checkered flag in hand at the end of this final lap to bring home a victory on another street circuit. And...
is he getting a penalty or not? I'm pushing like a madman at the moment.
Just keep pushing like a madman.
Yeah, he's pushing hard, as is Fernando Alonso. Out in front, Perez doesn't need to push quite so much, but I bet you he is pushing, Martin, because he knows that Verstappen behind him could nick that championship lead at the end of this lap if he gets the fastest lap.
I'm keeping an eye on Verstappen's sector times. He's 7 seconds behind. But yeah, he's going for it. He's going for it. Verstappen trying to get the fastest lap. He's done a personal best of anybody actually in the first sector by some margin.
Not sure there's any way that Sergio Perez is going to respond to this, but I don't think, even if he can't get the championship lead, it is going to take the shine off his performance tonight. He's been exemplary from start to finish, survived a safety car restart as well, put a gap between himself and Fernando Alonso, who was second at the time, has kept his teammate Max Verstappen very much at bay too. Sergio Perez on course to win from pole.
And it's a solid middle sector. It's not spectacular, but it's fast enough given the first sector he's already put in. Verstappen could well get that World Championship point.
This will be the first race that Sergio Perez has won with Max Verstappen in second place. He sees the checkered flag in his victory at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for Sergio Perez tonight. It is another 1-2 finish, though, to match Bahrain for the Red Bull team. Perez beats Verstappen, who did what on the final lap, Martin Brundle?
A 1:31.906 and the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. As yet again then for Fernando Alonso, for the second time already this season on the podium, providing he doesn't get a penalty. George Russell Actually, 5.1 seconds behind him at the end. He did drop out of the 5-second zone.
As it stands, Fernando Alonso, on the 17th anniversary of his 25th podium, has now sealed his 100th podium in Formula One. A Centurion and the 6th driver to do that in Formula One history. The podium places occupied by the same 3 drivers as they were in the season opener: Perez, Verstappen and Alonso. Behind them, Russell and Hamilton. A much more impressive showing tonight from the Mercedes duo. 4th and 5th, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, 6th and 7th. Ocon, Gasly and Magnussen completing the top 10. Then comes Tsunoda and Hülkenberg, Joe and De Vries. Piastri though, Sargent, Norris scrapping all the way to the line. And if you get in a drag race to the line, you might pick up a place, but Logan Sargent manages to hold off Lando Norris. 16th place for him. Norris has only Valtteri Bottas behind him as we lost Alex Albon and Lance Stroll. That man there saw nothing but clear track really ahead of him since the restart. Perez wins.
Wicked job. Wicked job.
Wicked. Nice job, guys. Well done. Excellent result for the team.
Fantastic, Checo. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really amazing drive. That last stint was on fire. Well done, mate.
Well done, guys. It's been an awesome first 2 races. Let's keep it up. Let's keep pushing. Plenty of more fun to have.
But he doesn't lead the World Championship due to that fastest lap going to Verstappen. Piastri overtook Sargent somewhere on the last lap as well. But yeah, well, Aston Martin on the podium again, as you say.
So great recovery, well done.
Yeah, not bad. That's yeah, good result for the whole team.
Great recovery, Max. That was a really good drive. Fastest lap at the end, 31.9. 1-2 finish. Sorry about yesterday, but great points today.
Driver of the day with the fastest lap as well, and that is 3 1-2 finishes in a row for the Red Bull team. And for those fans there, their man has absolutely delighted them tonight. Sergio Perez, after a couple of second places, can pull his Red Bull car into the spot on the grid reserved for numero uno.
Max has gone in the pit lane though and not come to the grid.
He's going to have to do a Jenson Button from Monaco and run to the celebrations. Perez gets the chance to stand atop his car as a Grand Prix winner for the 5th time in his career, for the first time since Monaco last season, winning from pole position. Sergio Perez. All smiles for the Red Bull team. It might have given them a few issues they weren't expecting after qualifying yesterday, but no doubting once again, as we may have said a couple of weeks ago, that car is the class of the field. His former #1 mechanic, Mikey from Aston Martin. It's the class of the field, and there's nothing out there to stop it on this sort of form.
No, 7 drivers of the 18 still running did their fastest laps on the final lap. Now I always think if you've got some grip and speed to spare, should have used it a bit earlier, but obviously they're getting down the fuel completely at that point as well. But that was a tremendous try. He should be well satisfied with that.
The one person not smiling there was Jos Verstappen.
Yeah.
Who obviously thinks second place for his son is not something to be smiled at. Still leading the championship. But when you've got, as we had with Mercedes, you know, back in the start of this turbo hybrid era, when you've got a car, Martin, that is that much faster than the rest, you need 2 teammates to be battling to give us a show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, you know, you look at Merck, 25 and 31 seconds behind, but the safety car concertinaed that up, didn't it?
Could have been a lot more. David Coulthard's smiling. He's got a microphone in his hand. He's waiting for Sergio Perez to take off his crash helmet, and for the 5th time in Formula One, face the cameras as a Grand Prix winner.
Sergio Perez, your 5th win in Formula One, again keeping this amazing record on street circuits. That was a tough one in the end.
Yeah, it turned out to be tougher than expected. That safety car, we really did the job in the first stint, but that safety car again tried to take the victory out of us again in Jeddah, but not this time. I was on the victory last year, so finally I got it. And the team did a fantastic job. I mean, the job they've done, they've worked so hard during the weekend. You know, we had a lot of mechanical issues, and these guys have been on top of that. So I'm really happy for them, and it's time to celebrate.
For a brief moment before the end, you were leading the World Championship by dint of having the fastest lap. Max pulled that